So, when people try and get you on their side of things, they try to get you to see their version of the story. And have you noticed that it's all based around narrative and character? So it usually sounds something like, I'm this person, and I did this because this person is like this, and I'm nothing like them. And because I'm nothing like them, I am doing this and I am saying this, which makes me the better person. Don't you agree? Don't you agree? And anytime someone is looking for support or backing or influence, it's spinning a story. And when stories contradict with other people's version of the stories, then it becomes who can convince better? Who has the more convincing storyline? Candace Owens and Erica Kirk is a fascinating case study of this right now. Just fascinating, honestly. It's a battle of narrative, which is common in every space online. They're not different in that per se, but what is interesting is they're hitting a lot of different marks, the two of them. One, I think it's fascinating, they're both women, and we're seeing women battle one another, but it's not in this like typical standard catty type of battle that the media portrays, or, I mean, forgive the term, ratchet type of battle that the media portrays of women who have conflict or disagreement with one another. It's a little different. It's a little different, and they're covering a lot of ground. I mean, we have, of course, the theme of jealousy. I mean, what women conflict doesn't somehow include a little envy, right? So we have jealousy. We also have an interesting angle of Christianity. Who is more virtuous here? Who is really the one with the good intentions versus the one with the bad intentions? Who is the better Christian? We also have this underlying conflict of class. Who is more dignified? Who is just disgusting and appalling? There's also, of course, the truth versus lies. Who's the honest one? Who's the liar? And we also have this debate of justification. Who is more justified in behaving in the way that they're behaving? Is it the widow who grieves the way she wants to grieve? Is it the friend who is enraged in grief and wants answers, investigating the truth? Who is more justified in the response? And how does their response bring people on board to where now others are having debates and taking stances and examining narratives and evaluating characters, right? Because that's essentially what's entailed when you hold a position on something. It's back to the narrative. Who's involved? What did they want? And how did they go about it? Who, what, where, when, why, and how. So I think it's fascinating, personally. I think it's fascinating how many lines have been drawn, how many dilemmas have been created, and it's like this offshoot of all sorts of different things, of religion and theology, of ethics, of women, relationships, marriages, families, how women are conducting themselves in the home and in the workplace. And if the workplace distracts the woman from her maternal duties at home. We're getting into romance and attraction. Was Candace actually jealous of Erica? But do you know what I find particularly interesting about these two? Is both have a group of men defending them, which I think is fascinating to observe. And I love to see it, frankly. But it begs the question, what makes these men feel called or compelled to defend Candace Owens or to defend Erica Kirk? You know, because we got internet battles out here. We got we got sleuths, we got warriors, we got those defending the right to speech, we got those defending the right to grieve, we got those defending true narratives, false narratives. Back to the narrative, we just can't get away from it. And I think it's really interesting from what I've observed that Erica Kirk's group is TPUSA and other people in the Christian religious space that come on the scene, come online, come on interviews to back up Erica Kirk. And then Candace Owens has also developed this group of men who are independent podcasters, independent journalists, and they're tracking what she's saying. They feel like she's onto something and that she's being wrongly accused. Just like the other men with Erica Kirk feel like she is being wrongly accused. That's a question. That's a question for us to examine. What compels these men to defend these women and why? What about the story? What about the narrative? And what about the woman as she is characterized and how the world is receiving the woman? Because I think that's actually what's getting the men to move. How is the world receiving Erica Kirk? And what do they have to say about it? How is the world receiving Candace Owens? And what do they have to say about it? And in it, it seems like I think across the board in general, whether, the men know her personally or not, there is I would say like a level of care there. But what we're seeing is them defending the narrative, the grieving widow, or the grieving best friend, and how the widow is showing up in her grief, and how the best friend is showing up in her grief. And in that, what they're discovering and what they're sharing and what they're speaking about, and it's very different. And the men behind them show up to continue bringing awareness to those narratives. And to put simply, Erica's Kirk narrative is Christian home, Christian wife, the conversation around legacy, how she is contributing and continuing on the legacy of her late husband, and what this means for the world and the politics in his vision. And funny enough, Candace Owens is doing the same thing, looking at her best friend's legacy, what he left behind, what his vision is, what this means for politics. And so, interestingly enough, both women and the men behind both women are taking the sides of their perception and their interpretation of the story, of the narrative, of this man who dedicated his life's work to meaningful conversations of politics and culture and upbringing and relationships and values, and how they're interpreting the death and then spinning their story and then sharing the narrative around it, correcting the narrative. Interesting. It's interesting, isn't it? There's many directions one could go in with the two of them. One could go in with the investigation of the death. One could go in with the geopolitical consequences. One could go in with free speech and social media. One could go in with women against women. But for now, I think it's worth examining that at the crux of all of it is a conversation of narrative and who has a more compelling narrative and why. Because at the heart of it, the elements are the same. There is grief about a loss of a man who had a vision for the future, and how each woman speaks about that, shares her side of the story with it, how other people's affirm or deny their side of the story with it, and how all of us seem to witness and observe how this polarization takes place. Hmm. There's more. There's more. Because this is a bigger conversation than a battle of right versus wrong, of truth versus lies, of real Christians versus fake Christians. This is actually a conversation about how a point of view is developed and how it's propagated. And in that point of view, how the perception of events differ and what influences are at play on perception of both of these women, but also questioning their perception. You see how meta it gets, which makes us question our perception. And when we have our perception, how do we participate in the dialogue? How do you participate in the conversations if you choose to participate at all? Perception and participation is the key here. And it's all based on narrative and stories and characters. And the real battle is what and how can we make, what story is more compelling and how do we make it even more so? Because what I'm beginning to suspect is it may not even be about convincing people to pick one side over the other. But if there's two fixed ideas, if there's two fixed points, And we just keep people here battling, 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 battling. I don't want to say this phrase, but it's what's coming to me. Both sides end up being sitting ducks, you know? So, right or wrong, right or left, good versus evil, natural versus synthetic, grief versus grief. These are fixed points in the mind. These are fixed points in the space of the internet, and there are fixed points in our psychology and how we relate to one another. And I think here the question is more, how do you and I develop our perception? And then how do you and I choose to participate? There's more. There always is. But this is where we'll begin. And as always, just some thoughts.